Hello and welcome to the Wicked Podcast. Today I'm talking to Will Polston and about his book North Star Thinking. I hope it will help and I hope you enjoy. Before the interview, a quick word from our very first sponsor, Zencaster. We use Zencaster for all our audio and video recording, and it's a very nifty tool that splits up all the channels for very easy editing. Zencaster is used by 10% of all active podcasts. You can get 40% off the first 3 months and unlimited audio and video recordings with our special coupon code Wicked Podcast. I repeat, Wicked Podcast for 40% off. And now the interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wicked Podcast. Today I'm here with Will Polston. Hello, Will, and thank you for being on the show.
Hello, great to speak with you, and absolutely my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Well, as usual, we start at the top. So please tell our listeners who you are and what you do.
So my name's Will Polston. I'm a business strategist and performance coach, and I empower people to transform excuses into results and live a life that they love by mastering their mindset, their productivity, and efficiency.
So your book is called North Star Metrics. Please tell us why the book and why you wrote the book and what it's all about.
So North Star thinking was a concept that I'd thought about for some time. It's kind of been developing over time, but to kind of go back a step as to how it even come about. So I kind of grew up with a belief that money equaled happiness, and went on a tangent to make as much money as I could as early as I could, and actually become quite good at that. But when I was 18, I stumbled across personal development, and the more personal development I did, the more money I made, and that went on for some years. And then 10 years ago, I had a big realization, what I call my lightning moment, and it was sort of so profound. I cried my eyes out for about 15 minutes, and in that moment I realized that my real driver was actually nothing to do with money. It had never been to do with money. It was all to do with my dad, and how my dad hadn't achieved certain things he was capable of, and the impact that had on him and my mum and me and my family and a whole host of other people. And I vowed in that moment, I don't want anyone else to go through the suffering that he went through and we went through, and arguably other people went through as a result of them not achieving their full potential. So that kind of gave me that big realization. And then I got into the coaching space, and I kind of vowed that's what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to help people to not go through that suffering. And I've been obsessed now for years of anything to do with human awareness, human potential, human behavior. And the more I've been involved with that, the more I've realized that a lot of people, a huge amount of people, achievers, people that are striving to do stuff, found themselves actually quite unfulfilled, even if they were achieving their goals. You know, I basically would set a short-term goal, they would achieve it. They would set another short-term goal, they'd achieve it. Set another short-term goal, and they'd achieve it. And after they've done that 4 or 5 times, they were unmotivated, unfulfilled, and actually feeling quite down, and some people even depressed. And it made me realize that what they were actually doing was chasing short-term objectives. And I actually refer to it as when-then syndrome. You know, when this happens, then I'll be okay. When this happens, then I'll be fine. When this happens, then I'll be happy. Yeah, exactly. There's always the next thing. But then I thought and I thought a lot. I'm a thinker, you know. I try and study lots of different modalities, and I quite often try and simplify them down. And one day I was just thinking of this quite famous story. You know, you've probably heard of this story. It involves a baby born in December a couple of thousand years ago, and there were 3 men, supposedly wise, all carrying presents, and they went in search of this baby, and they found the baby. But what was interesting is that what they were following was the North Star, but they never went to the North Star. All they did is they used it as a guiding light, and it just kind of triggered to me is actually what would happen if we had a goal in life that was so big that we accepted that we were never going to achieve it, and we used it as our guiding light. And then we detached from that outcome and we just focused on the process instead. Then every single day we can become more fulfilled and more energized and more inspired by taking that action rather than actually achieving the outcome in its own right. So yeah, that was that's what inspired it.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think so. The next question there was pretty obvious. So so you say people are choosing the wrong kind of goals. So why do you think that is, or what in that process do you think we're sort of getting wrong to miss
to favor the small things for the big things? Do we actually see it like that, or is it just what's sort of the
It's
wrong kind
it's
of thinking we're doing when we aim at these things?
it's a great question. Uh, Primarily, if I was to kind of single it down to a sentence, it's because people aren't living their own values. They're living values
Mm,
that have been injected or projected onto them, and that could be parents, grandparents,
mm,
teachers, even society. Have got idealisms of how things should be. A great example of this is, right, you're going to learn loads, then you're going to earn loads, and then you're going to yearn loads. Is that right? We're going to get to 65 and retire, or whatever the age for retirement is now, and that's when life will be great. So
yeah.
we've been channeled in a lot of that. I put down to schooling. Don't even get me started on the schooling system, but it was something, the whole industrial age of what was created, and we're running a whole system that's kind of, anyway, we won't go into that wormhole right now, but it's kind of how we've been conditioned in society. A lot of people are like, that is, well, my family have always done it this way, so this is how I need to do,
Hmm.
and a lot of
Yeah.
people think that way. And yeah, I think that's one of the factors. And I think that so many people are focusing on what they think is going to get them where they want to be, i.e., the
Yeah.
outcome, as opposed to falling in love with that process.
Hmm. And I think that reflects. Obviously, I think that reflects a lot of people. Definitely reflects with me. Definitely reflects my side. My background. I work a lot in change and transformation in organizations, and try to also change thinking and change sort of behaviors. And it's the same thing. People often jump at the very thing that's right in front of them, what they think is the right thing to do quickly, and forget the bigger piece that actually might gain more from. They might gain more from. So how do you go about this then? So let's say I live somewhere. Everyone lives somewhere. And there's all these different things I think I should do. How do we twist it, and how do we get to the real stuff that we might
So
like?
language is a really key giveaway for me, and you just
Hmm.
use the word should there. What are the things I think I
Yeah.
should do? So an indication when we're living somebody else's values. So again, like, these could be society, parents, grandparents, whatever else. We'll find that we constantly need motivation to do it, external
Mm,
motivation. And generally, people are using language like I have to, I need to, I should,
mm,
I ought to. That's an indicator that we're living somebody else's values. When we're living our own values, we'll use language like I love to, I choose to, I
mm,
desire to, we're inspired. Now, if I get pedantic with language, and I'm really quite into the etymology, the root origin of
mm,
words. Now, if we take the word inspired, in spirit, what's another word for spirit? Energy. You're in your energy. So people think they burn out because they're
mm,
working too hard. They don't. Nobody burns out because they're working too hard. People burn out because they're not spending enough time doing the stuff that they would love to be doing. So when we hone into that, if you're constantly energized, and we've all had times where we're in flow state, and we just had we could be
mm,
doing stuff, whatever it is, for hours and hours and hours, and actually have more energy by the time we finish than even when we started. It's got nothing to do with the amount of work that's been done, but what it's got 100% to do with is the work that we were doing in the time. So that they're indications, whether we're getting fatigued, whether it's something that's filling us up, whether it's something that's draining us, is an indication of whether that is something that is kind of aligned for you or not. And obviously there's the practical ways, the pragmatic ways about how we go and getting clear about that, but they're kind of a couple of indicators. One of the other ones is like my definition, personal definition of what success looks like, and success is subjective, is people being, doing, and having what they desire. So if you find yourself, like, you might be doing something, but you're not, like, it's affecting your state of being, you're not loving it,
mm,
then that's an indication. If you're doing lots of things, but it's meaning you're not having the things you want, having the experience in, having the material things, whatever that might be, it's
mm,
an indication, and you're not getting closer to it. And I'll add that, actually, because sometimes
mm,
there's things that we can desire that we don't have yet, and that's okay. But if we've got indications that we're getting closer to it, we're moving closer to it, then great, we're on the right
mm.
track. But
Yeah,
what we
yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to be doing is not moving closer to it, or which is basically moving further away from it or not moving closer to it. So there are a couple of indicators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that the energy aspect definitely as well is the thing that highly resonates, because I remember, especially in the projects I'm working on, because they're very complex, therefore they have a tendency to be quite stressful. But stress can come in two different doses, right? It's either negative stress that really wears you out and burns you out, and then the positive stress, which is you have a clear target, you go for it, it's hard work, but you don't really get tired. You can pull through it because you have this positive thing that drives you, and you know you want to do it and you enjoy doing it. It doesn't wear you really down. I think a few times that positive aspect wears you down. Exactly as you said, it's the negative thing, the thing that we're sort of trying to fight against something that we sort of know we don't want to do, but we do
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
despite ourselves, right? Yeah, it's interesting. So what's then the North Star thinking in particular sort of made of to sort of get closer to these things, to take steps toward maybe tell me a bit more about, is it are there parts of it that also help you detect these things they're not quite right for you, or is it mainly sort of the things that make up to give you a better direction towards what you should rather
Yeah,
aiming at?
but both. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's both. So in terms of the process, so pragmatically, we help people create what these are. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in terminology that a lot of people may have heard before, we talk a lot about visions and missions and purpose. They're the three words that are generally banded around a lot. And it's interesting that I'm very mindful that some people will have different meanings for each of those, but use the same word, right? So what some people might call a vision is actually what another person might call a mission, and somebody might call their mission their purpose. So I'm mindful that they could be used interchangeably. But for my purposes, is a purpose is the reason why you do something. The mission is the what you're doing, and the vision is the outcome of doing the what. So, i.e., doing the mission. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of how I break it down and see them. And a North Star is essentially a combination of all of those. So your North Star is you're doing your North Star is created from your why, like the reason why you're doing something.
Yeah.
It's your mission to be doing the thing, and actually it encompasses a bit of vision as well. So mine is about, I want to empower people to transform excuses into results and live a life they love. Well, that's the why behind that I shared briefly earlier. It's to do with my dad
Mm-hmm.
and that element.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's born from. The mission is what we're working towards, and the vision is people literally living the life that they love. That's for me what it's about. Having people, and I've had the privilege of working with a lot of people now, probably about 2,000 different business owners and entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
that we have taken them through a process that's enabled them from having elements of their life that they haven't been enjoying and enjoying it, whatever that might look like. Everything from business owners, professional athletes, celebrities, and a whole bunch of people in between. I've also been the guy that's got the phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning when someone's about to commit suicide, and we're doing those
Oh,
interventions to get them back on track. So there's
yeah.
the process that's applied. It all comes back to this same thing, but from a pragmatic, very much a pragmatic way of creating it. Then I've kind of distilled it down that enables people to create it, because that's what a lot of people talk about. They say, I want to find my purpose, and they might go traveling around the world to find their purpose. But in my opinion, they don't ever find it, they create it. So if you've got the process to create it and you've got the steps to go through, then it can absolutely be created. And that's what we help people do.
Wonderful. So there's a trifecta in your book that I want to talk about, these different components. And the first one, and it is in no particular order. I start with clarity. I think that's
Mm,
what a lot of people are looking for, because the complexity of the day, complexities of life. There's always something. There's always something that pulls you in different directions. And again, I see this as well in my job, because clarity is often very absent, because there's so many things crying for attention in front of you. Um, what's the clarity aspect? Elaborate on that a little bit. in that approach?
So yeah, as I mentioned, I studied lots of different modalities. Everything from, we go back to ancient wisdom like Stoicism, right through to more new age stuff like neurolinguistic programming and a whole bunch of other stuff in between. And what I try and do is simplify stuff and distill things down. And what I realize is that at the essence of everything that anyone has ever gone on to do, they've gained clarity of where they are now, and clarity of what they want as the outcome, and an element of clarity of what that journey might look like in some sort of trajectory. So I refer to it as absolute clarity, because we can have a little bit of clarity and we could have clarity that's a bit blurry. But for me, it's absolute clarity on a few key components. So what the end looks like, if you study lots of great leaders, 2,000 years ago, Aristotle was speaking about the telos. The Stoics spoke about the logos. Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich, spoke about the chief aim. Robert Greene talks about planning to the end. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about beginning with the end in mind. They've all spoken about beginning with the end in some capacity. So creating that clarity around what that means, and working through that, but also being clear on where we're at now. So one of the resources in the book is something I call a happiness meter, where we get people to identify where they are in terms of their happiness in 20 areas of their life. Because in my experience, more often than not, the biggest wins are actually created by looking at the things that have been scored lowest and working on those first, regardless of everything else, because generally they have a domino effect on everything else. So, for example, if someone's time management is really, really bad, it's 2 out of 10 in time management, then if we improve their time management, that has a ripple effect across their whole life. But it's not just time management that we start with, it's whatever's scored lowest. So for some people, the thing they've scored lowest on is clarity of goals. For some people, it's time management. For some people, it's their health. For some people, it's their energy. For some people, it's their sleep. But by looking at that area first as a starting point, we can create massive wins in all the other areas just by focusing on that area. So that's sort of a bit of an insight into absolute clarity.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And then there's probably then the one that is, don't know if it's the scariest one of all three, but maybe that tells you more about me than I should tell you. But so there's accountability, right? Which is a great one, because I've seen a lot of, again, I'm talking from work, but I think also sometimes in a lot of personal life, we all know the kind of New Year's Eve promises you make yourself, and the kind of the gym memberships that spike in January and sort of drop off in inactivity by week 3 statistically, as we know, is probably one good example of that, where accountability doesn't seem to work. And in companies, you see the same thing. People seem to set up structures where the accountability itself doesn't seem to really get anchored anywhere. And so with that, there's often learning is missing, and progress, therefore, is often missing, right? Because it keeps cycling around without taking steps further. So tell me about your view on accountability and how it plays into this.
Yeah, so I can see why for some it's daunting, and so I refer to it as active accountability, and the key word being active. So I believe that deep down we're all liars. Yeah, we lie to ourselves over and over again. That really important bit of work, we go, oh, we can put that off till next week. Oh, I must catch up with my family. I'll put that off till whatever it might be. And I also believe that we've been conditioned our whole life to be accountable. When you're born, you're accountable to your parents. You go to school, you're accountable to your teachers. You go to work, you're accountable to your boss. And then we get into the big wide world, and we want to do stuff for ourselves, and we wonder why we don't have accountability. Sorry, we wonder why we don't make the progress we want. It's because we don't have accountability. Now, for me, accountability is 2 sides of the same coin. You either want to avoid looking bad, or you want to look good. Right, so that person that is holding you to account, depending on what your driver is, whether you're moving away from pain or towards pleasure, whatever it is, that's kind of where accountability comes in. Now, in addition to that, it doesn't always have to be somebody else. We can create self accountability. So I refer to a process called streaking, and it's not sort of where I'm taking my clothes off and running across the football pitch, but it's like, for example, having a calendar and saying, right, well, I'm going to eat healthy every day, right? And you put an X in the box every day, and what happens after a while is it's no longer about eating healthy anymore. It's now about keeping the streak going. Actually, a great example of this, almost gamifying. Great example of this is Duolingo. So, coming up to 2 years ago, I started learning Spanish, and I was using the app Duolingo to learn it. And after day 2, I noticed something, and what I noticed was that it said, "Congratulations, you're on a 2-day streak." And I then got to the point where I was more obsessed with keeping my streak going than I was learning the Spanish. I didn't care about the Spanish anymore. I just wanted to keep this ongoing streak. Maybe it tells you a lot about me, but it was that element, and so that's a form of self accountability. But either way, there's a structure, there's a mechanism in place that creates that accountability. Now, having a person to hold you account is great, and I do truly believe, and bearing in mind that I've got a kind of bias towards ambitious individuals, and generally ambitious individuals might class themselves as high performers, or certainly desire to be high performers in whichever area of their life they're working towards. High performers want accountability. So if you class yourself or regard yourself as a high performer or a top performer, or want to be something of that in whichever industry it may be in, and I don't mean professionally, this could be sort of personally as well, is you have a degree of accountability. If you want to get stronger, for example, when you're in the gym, that accountability may be that you track the bench press weights that you were doing last week, so that this week you can either do more reps or lift more weight or whatever it is. So it's having that as a guide to move towards, and it's that structure, that accountability is kind of the form of structure that helps people strive and move forward.
So in some sense, would you say it's a form of measurement as well, or feedback? Because I remember, because when I was training for my marathons, over the last 5 years, I did 2 marathons. Not sure I can do a third one, but you get your plan, and then basically you really see that you track things, and the tracking and the feedback, the accountability of have I done my weekly, and am I still on track? Is a thing that it gives you feedback because I've done one again, I've done a week, I've done a month, and that kind of stuff, and this one takes 3-4 months to do. But it also shows you that I just done one, and it was so much easier than it was 2 weeks ago, right? So you can see the difference as well. So I think it helps you with that. So for me, it sounds like a measurement. How much do you think sort of measurement or feedback comes in? Because you're saying sometimes someone else holds you accountable, be it a personal trainer or manager or something like that, depending on what you want to achieve, or a mentor. How does that sort of play in? Can you dig a bit deeper into that, please? Just to
sure. It's impossible. It's impossible to have accountability without measurement, because worst case scenario, you have something that's binary. You've either done it or you haven't. So that's still a form of measurement. So even if you haven't said, for example, it's running, right, I'm gonna run 6 times this week, that's a form of measurement. But equally, just saying I'm going to go for a run, even if you're just doing it once. You're not saying that it's going to be done within a time frame. You're not saying how many miles. You're not saying anything like that. It's still binary. You've done it or you haven't. So yeah, it's impossible to have accountability without the measurement. In my experience, though, people are far more likely to do something if they've told another human being. Now, I appreciate for some people that gets scary, that gets daunting. I know for me personally, if I put something out to lots of people, if I really want to get something done, I'll publicly declare it. So a great example of this was, what year are we in? 5 years ago, August 5 years ago, I had an idea, and it was like a Tuesday evening, and I just had this vision of running a big multi-speaker event. So I'm in the personal development industry. I used to run about 80 events a year, but I decided I wanted to do a big 2-day multi-speaker event, 15 speakers, flying speakers in from all over the world. And I believe that a decision's never really made until you've taken some action. It's the old adage: you got six frogs sat on a lift. 6 frogs sat on a log. One decides to jump off. How many are left on the log? 6. He only decided, he didn't jump. So my big thing is taking action. So I then declared out into my Facebook group with, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 people in it at the time. I'm going to put on this event. Well, now it's no longer an idea anymore. I'm saying I'm doing it. I'm saying it's going to happen in 4 months. So it was out there, and I could have reneged on it, but I was far less likely to have reneged on it once I put that out to the world than I would have done if I'd have just gone to bed that night and gone, oh, actually, maybe that was just a silly idea,
Yeah. I think that's interesting because that reminds me of Peter Drucker, the management guru, who said, a decision has not been made unless you have a clear definition of what it is, put a time in for when it's supposed to be done, and have a person attached to it. Otherwise, this is not a decision, which is probably anyone who works out there in any other company will see, like, there's a lot of meetings that never reach any decisions because some of these things is missing. And it's the same in your personal life, right? When you say, so, yeah, I'm really gonna famously, go to the gym or learn the guitar, and you buy the guitar, but then you actually never put anything else into action and just catches dust. And there you go, and then you sell it on eBay, I guess. So that's really interesting how that works. And I think it's where do you think then? So you say people don't take action. Is that sort of the main thing you reckon people fail on it, or are there other famous pitfalls where people fail on that one thing to become more accountable?
So if we were talking about action, why do people? So what people do? If people aren't taking action, generally they're procrastinating, right? Let's call it procrastinating. What's interesting with procrastinating though is that it's a label. So if I ever say to somebody, okay, well, what are you doing when you're procrastinating? They're still doing something. It's just not the thing they wanted to be doing. So scrolling through their phone, for example, on Facebook, is still an action. It's just not the desired action. Sitting down watching Netflix is still an action. It's not the desired action. And in my experience, people generally will only ever be not taking action, and I call it intelligent action. So to sort of make up the triad, you've got absolute clarity, intelligent action, and active accountability. Is that they're not taking intelligent action. So intelligent action is action that's aligned with their values and their goals. Because taking action is watching Netflix, is scrolling through your phone. It's still some form of action, but it's not aligned with the values and the goals, hence not intelligent. And what I find is that if people are not taking action, it's normally because they don't have the accountability. That can quite often be the case, or they don't have the clarity. So, for example, they don't have the clarity on what the actual step is, so they don't take the step. If they think the project's too big, they've not broken it down enough, i.e. they've not got absolute clarity on what the very next step needs to be. And sometimes it can be that. Sometimes it can be actually they've broken down lots of steps, but they've not put them in order. So they know all the little micro steps, but there's not kind of a sequence of what's going to be done in what time frame, i.e. having the deadlines of when certain things will be done. That can stop people. Then, of course, you've got the what I would call the mindset element. So you can have limiting beliefs, for example. Well, for me, if somebody's got limiting beliefs, they haven't got absolute clarity. So that's why I can kind of distill it down to these three components. And if people aren't taking action within a very short period of time with a few strategically asked questions, we can actually get to the root cause of why somebody's not doing stuff. And what I will say is a huge amount of the time is because it's either actions that aren't really aligned with their North Star, or they're not perceiving how it aligns with their North Star. So a perfect example of this, a very real example, one of my clients owns a big recruitment company. He's kind of fed up of recruitment, but he's got a goal of expanding out into many other services that he can service that same particular sector that he looks after with additional services. So software, marketing, even a mergers and acquisition division, but he's got the same pool of clients that he provides all these additional services to with multiple different businesses. So he wasn't excited to get on the phone and build these relationships with these clients for recruitment. But when he gained the clarity that actually that one new client could be a client for all of these 6 other businesses, and he made the connection of what that did for him, all of a sudden he was energized, inspired, because it was aligned with where he was going in the future. So that's kind of a contextual example.
For him, it was then clear when these things were a thing and when they weren't, and that was my initial, when I first read it, sort of my question on the intelligent actions. If I say someone wants to build a business, right, there's a lot of things to do and consider to do a business apart from obviously getting your first client, but lots of other bits and moving parts. If someone's never done this before, right, there's obviously the question, if I've never done it before, I don't know maybe necessarily what I need to do. So then taking the intelligent steps or actions or identifying them might be tricky. If you don't know what your next steps would be, not because you don't have clarity on what you want to do and have accountability on how you measure when you get there. Let's say I want to get to the first client, but there's other bits and pieces missing. How would you then ever get to that? What sort of general pitfall or advice do you have for people then to say, if you don't know, then this is what helps?
It's a great question. So I mentioned right at the beginning of the call, 10 years ago, I had my big lightning moment, this big realization. And I decided that I wanted to empower people all over the world to live a life they love. And I rushed home that evening and I registered a company, limited company's house, limited company. And the next day when it was easy to get a bank account, I went into the bank and I set up a business bank account. And I was like, right, I'm taking action. This is all moving forward. And then I did nothing. Because I said, right, I'll do it when I'm successful, quote unquote, right? And that's when I'll take the next step. And 18 months went by and nothing happened. I did have another business. So I'd left at the time I was working in financial services in London. I left the city. I set up a business. We were growing that business, growing rapidly. And then some changes happened in government and it basically killed that business overnight, right? And I went on holiday to kind of get a bit of a break, and that business folded. And then I was reading a book on holiday called The Hero by Rhonda Byrne. She wrote a whole bunch of books linked around something called The Secret. And in The Hero, there was a part of the book where she spoke about a guy called Mastin Kipp. Now, Mastin Kipp used to have a website, he may still have it, called The Daily Love. And Mastin used to post a quote, like a motivational quote on Twitter every day, right? And he would post this quote on Twitter every day. And one day he got retweeted by Kim Kardashian. And he went from 1,000 followers to 10,000 followers overnight. And I just cried my eyes out in that moment. Because in that moment, I realized I didn't need to wait until I become successful to start. What I needed to do was just take some form of action. That action could be as simple as posting a motivational quote on social media every day. So I come back from that holiday and I posted a quote every morning. And after a week, I thought, Will, you idiot. Some people don't go on social media in the morning. You should post one in the afternoon as well. So I posted one in the morning, one in the afternoon. A week after that, I thought, right, well, now I'm starting to build a bit of traction. Maybe I should create a website. So I made my own website. After that, I wrote my first blog. After that, I was posting a blog every week. Within 3 months, I had a 10,000 strong social media following. After that, I ran my first event and so on. So what that taught me was actually all you need to do is start. Now, what I've learned since is one of the best ways of starting is by beginning with the end, right? So you start with the end, you know where you want to get to, and reverse engineer that and it can be done really, really loosely. So you might have something you say, right, well, I want to have a thriving business in, I don't make it up, 3 years from now. I want to be making X amount of money and Y amount of clients and whatever else. But what would that look like 1 year from now? What would that then look like 90? Then you do that and then you copy and paste those answers and you tweak them. So what does that look like 90 days from now? What does that look like a month from now? What does that look like at the end of this week? What does that look like at the end of the day? And by reverse engineering it, you will get to a very, very, very tiny actionable step that very much is possible and within the realm of possibility. So it's like the whole adage of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. You can reverse engineer it to the point where you get to that point where you can work out what that next step is. And more often than not, it's like sliding doors. You do that next step, even if you don't necessarily know what it is, you move forward. So I often talk about, we've all been into a supermarket before where you have the automatic doors, you get close and then the automatic doors open. Now, if you were sat in the car and imagine it was a rainy day, you turn up on a Sunday, you're the only person in the car park and it's raining and you say to yourself, right, I'll get out the car when they open. You'd be sat in the car for a long time. But by getting out of the car and taking the action, you get within, whatever it is, a meter or two, and they open for you. And I think it's very much that case. Once you've made the commitment, right, I'm getting out of the car, even though it's raining, I don't know if they're going to, but when you get there, they open one way or another. And if they don't, then there's always an opportunity to pivot. So you start off by making the right decision. And if it's not the right decision, you make the decision right.
And it's not just that. I found as well, because I can really relate to that analogy, because whenever I did anything from writing my first book to trying other bits and bobs, you start talking, and then when you said you talk to people a bit more, and then you set yourself up to actually potentially more take action, or you put yourself out there essentially. You'll meet people and they will connect with you on these things, and they will give you more feedback, and they give you more information that bit by bit will naturally either bring you closer, or they will just feedback and say, yeah, I don't know what it is, or that doesn't work for me at all. But they might give you alternatives, they might give you tangents and things. And when you talk about pivots, they might give you already options to consider as pivots, because you'll pick up, and if it still fits your initial direction, you just pick it up in a different way. It's a really great way to say that. Wonderful. I always have more questions than time, and unfortunately on this one as well I have to already ask the last question. So let's get maybe a bit serious as well on that level. UK in particular, I think the world in general, we're living in pretty much tough times. Some people like to say, it's maybe tougher than ever before. Even so, on the last podcast I recorded earlier this week, my guest was saying, yeah, but it's still amazing that you can create ideas, build companies, and so it's still possible. That hasn't seemingly diminished for some. It's good to know. But what would you say to people, now that a lot of things look a bit darker, look a bit harder to do when you have so many other responsibilities just to get by at times, to still chase these things, to still go forward with that? What would be sort of...
Yeah, so look, there's so two things. First of all, is understanding that tough times create tough people, and tough people create good times. And it's also worth understanding that throughout history, we go through seasons. We have spring, we have summer, autumn or fall follows summer, winter follows fall or autumn, and after winter, it's spring again. So it's worth noting that one of my favourite adages is that it's always darkest just before dawn, which is pretty apt when we're talking about spring. But I think finally is a great one. And like the Chinese have two brushstrokes for the word crisis. One means danger and the other means opportunity. So sure, we may be in a crisis at the moment, but you can choose to focus on the danger or focus on the opportunity.
Mic drop. There you go. Wonderful. Great. Well, it was lovely talking to you, and thank you for your time and all your insights, and good luck with your North Star, with your mission, and thank you for being with me.
No, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to The Wicked Podcast with co-host Marcus Kirsch and me, Troy Norcross.
Please subscribe on Podomatic, iTunes, or Spotify. You can find all relevant links in the show notes. Please tell us your thoughts in the comment section and let us know about any books for future episodes.
You can also get in touch with us directly on Twitter on @WickedandBeyond or @Troy_Norcross. Also, learn more about the Wicked Company book and the Wicked Company project at wickedcompany.com.